YouTube, back again with another update on the Ducati Scrambler project. There's been a bunch of stuff done since I did my last video, and did some more on this past weekend, so I thought now would be a good time to show you some video. Enough looking at my ugly face. So what do we see here? Again, let's start at the front and go to the back. Can't remember if I had this on the last video, but I did swap out the tires, some Metzler race techs that were on the Panta project. Crazy overkill to run on a street bike, certainly more acceptable or reasonable to go on something that will end up as a track bike. So those tires have been mounted. I always like to talk about my deals. Nothing like getting a good deal. Canadians love their deals. So I think I said in one of my last videos or one of my updates on the forum that the rotors that came with these wheels, or the rotors that came with the fork and triples, weren't correct. So when I finally tracked down the correct wheel to fit in the forks, the rotors didn't match up. No idea what they are. Doesn't matter. Some sort of mystery Kawasaki bolt fitment or something like that. So you know, doing some research and some Googling and finding some part numbers. This is an EBC wave rotor, brand spanking new, never been mounted in the original EBC box. Again, a motorcycle distributor wholesaler had 10 of them on eBay. I put in a very cheeky lowball bid of $50 each for 2 of them, and the guy accepted the offer. So normally these rotors go anywhere between, let's say, $225 to $250 new. So score. You can see though that there's only one of them on there. So that takes us to the brake line. So that's good old Van Hill brake lines, my favorite company to deal with. And that you specify the fitments, they cut you the line, you put it together, you mount it up, you tighten up these compression fittings here, and you don't have brake hoses twisting around and looking like a bit of a mess. So the reason why I went with one rotor right now, or at least temporarily, I did buy 2 because 50 bucks, you can't go wrong. When I got the original parts that started this project, there were 2 calipers. So I do have 2. I got a set of brake pads for each caliper for, again, smoking deal. I think it was $28 US for EBC track day pads. Again, I think it's dead stock that they've had in a bike shop, considering these parts are off a bike that's over 20 years old now. Yeah, I'm gonna go with 1, admittedly because of this front brake master cylinder. So this is the braking radial master cylinder I got from Valtramoto US for, again, a super cheap price of I think $128 Canadian for a brand new radial master cylinder. That's an amazing price. However, I think it had to do probably with the bore size, because this is listed as 17. And so when I had the twin line set up, both calipers on there, trying to bleed the brake caliper, the ratio was miles off. So this size master cylinder, trying to actuate those 2 calipers, it just wasn't even bleeding up, no matter how much fluid I ran through it. So I decided to just see what would happen if I go with 1, and it feels great. It's got a bit of a click there. Again, interesting design, and I'm not sure again how popular these master cylinders were, but Braking is a good company. I've used their stuff before. But anyway, the 17 millimeter bore seems just bang on for a single front caliper. It's got a really nice feel to it, not too much lever travel. And the other thing too is that when the original Scrambler 800 was built, it only ran with 1 brake caliper and rotor. Granted, it was a larger diameter rotor. I think it was like 320. This is 280. I don't know. I'll run it as is and see how it works. If it turns out to be a disaster or the bike doesn't stop worth a damn, I'll have to find a new, larger, probably 19 or 20 millimeter master cylinder. And I've still got the spare line. I've got the fittings, got the other caliper, I got the other rotor, I got the other brake pads. So Yeah, it was maybe a bit of a stretch, but if it does work out well with one rotor, I've got certainly some spare parts. I've got brand new pads spare, and who knows? I can put the other rotor on a set of rain wheels or something. I'm getting way ahead of myself for a fun track day bike. So anyway, that's the front end to date. Decided to put on this cheeky Chinese front brake duct here. I doubt it performs any function whatsoever other than it looks kind of racy. That isn't even carbon fiber. That's plastic made out to look like carbon fiber. So anyway, it's just a bit of fun, and probably the first time I have to change the wheels or something like that, I'll want to take it off, because it's another thing to add on and fart around with the caliper and that sort of thing. I might have pointed this out last time. Forks are leaking, so new set of fork seals on the way for this. I have had a hard time trying to track down the right bushing. There isn't a bushing kit made for this, so I think I've got some specs that I found online. I might have to order individual bushings right from KYT, KYP, whatever, the suspension manufacturer. Same bushings actually, or same seals as on the Triumph 675. So there might be a way that one or both can mix and match and work and that sort of thing. Let's see. So moving towards the back, you can see that there's now some oil in the case. An interesting thing happened. So I had this, not really new old stock. I bought it a couple of years ago, an actual Ducati branded oil filter that it had in my spares, and I went and spun this on here when I drained all the old oil. Of course, cleaned the screen here, replaced this with a really cool titanium drain bolt with very cool safety wiring holes from Randy at Stratafab. So I went and did all that, and then I thought, well, I'm getting closer and closer to firing this thing up, so I added 3 liters of full synthetic oil, and then used the crankshaft turning tool on the other side just to get some oil circulating around. Just, again, me being anal retentive about that sort of thing, trying to get as much oil in the engine as I can before you fire it up for the first time. And I'd spun it over a number of times, and then suddenly I heard this funny little like liquidy sound. I can't describe it, and I won't try to embarrass myself by trying to replicate it. And I noticed that it seems that the oil filter seal had failed, and it was leaking oil from this area right here, which, of course, being a catastrophizer, I thought, oh my god, this engine wasn't a bike that was crashed. Maybe it slid on its side and hammered the case against some hard immovable object. I obviously didn't see any cracks. I didn't see anything. I thought maybe there's a hairline crack somewhere. So luckily I did have a spare oil filter, an MGO one, which it's aftermarket, but they're all made in China anyway. Replaced it with that, and then spent considerable time trying to replicate what had happened to make sure that it wasn't an issue with the case or anything like that. So I've spun the engine over, I don't know how many RPM with this replacement cheap-ass Chinese oil filter, and it's not leaking, which is a good thing. So that was a bit of a hiccup. And I guess, I don't know, if you have a way, when you're rebuilding a bike, or certainly guys who strip engines, they even prime the oil pump with a drill and that sort of thing. So it's not a bad habit to get into, because had I fired it up, I would have probably puked out a heck of a lot of oil very quickly before I could get the engine shut off or that sort of thing. So anyway, just something I'd never had experienced in 20-something years of working on and wrenching bikes. Moving up to the top, and again, I should, keep better track of what I've talked about and what I've not. But anyway, obviously the throttle is hooked up. I think I did talk about how it's just a fractional, that's fully closed to wide open, so that's a very short-term throttle. But I did get the rebuild parts I wanted for the two FCRs. So with this downdraft one, based on its design, about how this was, I believe, no, this one always was here. It might have been the I don't know. One of the fuel intake spigots was fixed, and it was pointed in the wrong direction. So I did some parts research, and I got a replacement oil spigot, O-rings for both, because those things always get hard and don't seal as well, and are good service items. And this little retaining piece right here. So now this is movable, although I'm not. It's pretty stiff, which again, stiff to me means a good seal, but you can move it slightly to orient it in the right location. Whereas the other one was way too loose. So that's why I got oil seals for both, because I was pretty sure the O-rings in the other one had petrified. So I've got these oriented so in a way that I think will work. So next steps is I've got a fuel petcock coming in, which will have to be mounted to the tank somehow underneath. But I'll use my little accessory fuel bottle with the Y splitter to feed both carbs and maybe get this thing fired up, which is pretty exciting. But before I do any of that, and this is why this looks like a bit of a mess, and the radiator rectifier has been removed, is that these belts aren't original. It's kind of nice to see. You can see on here somewhere that they are from Ducati. It's right there, Ducati California or something like that. Company I've dealt with in the past. So California Cycle Works, that's what it's called. So so they're not original to the bike. They're not 21-year-old belts. They are aftermarket, but they're certainly loose, which, okay, fine. Belts are better a bit too loose than way too tight. But I don't know the age of them, and they've been sitting in the same probably orientation around the pulleys for quite some time. So turning it over by hand certainly is fine. But I've got these currently set up, as you can see, for when the belts do come in the mail. I can swap them out and retension them, and I'm just absolutely paranoid about anytime I buy a new to me used Ducati. Changing the belt is always the first thing, because so often they're overlooked, they're the wrong tension, they're poor quality, so I always replace those. So I've got a set of California Cycle Works belts coming in for this specifically. So with the oil and the new belts and the carbs built and serviced, we could be getting pretty darn close to actually firing this thing up for the first time, which is pretty exciting. I do need to upload the correct settings in the Ignitec, so I'll need to grab the laptop and get that hooked up. But again, for someone who spends most of my time working on carburetors and not points ignition, I can never figure those things out. But basic ignition, converting a Hall effect sensor fuel injected engine to run on carburetors using some sort of magical black box that some Czechoslovakians put together, to me is like witchcraft. So I don't think I can screw it up too badly. If the timing's miles out, I might get some problems, but there's a baseline setting for this setup, and then I've reread it several times. Maybe I'm not even too stupid to figure out how to advance or retard the timing and stuff like that. So we'll see how it goes. And as we know, when you start from scratch like this, or you're pulling together disparate parts from various eras and that sort of thing, the engine might run really good, but the carbs are leaking or something like that. So there's always those things that, even as hard as you work and as detailed as you are, a slightly pinched O-ring in the float bowl could lead to a bunch of troubles, or the jetting might be miles out or something like that. So I certainly inspected it and did some investigation, but I'm hoping that initially I'll get it to fire, I'll get it to idle half decently. I'll need to top up the oil because none of it has circled through the oil cooler yet, and it'll actually make the right kind of noises. You know, brakes work, hopefully the throttle works, but then the next thing will be you know, doing some things like looking at tearing the forks apart and getting the fuel tank modified. So that'll be the next big thing, tidying up all the wiring, that sort of thing. So anyway, it's been an interesting journey, so to speak. It hasn't really taken that crazy long when you think about it, because again, I keep going back to the tried and true air-cooled 2-valve Ducati engine that you know is fairly simple to work on, and again, engine mount, engine melt, swing arm mount, done. Of course, my dream would be to go totally rogue and do something similar to this with an ST3 engine. So you Ducatistas know that was that limited run 3-valve single, like it had single overhead cam, but 3-valve engine that was really sweet, made of around high 90s, low 100 horsepower, and was an amazing engine. It was just, they just didn't develop it that much. So one of those days I'm going to get my hands on one of those things and do some other sort of crazy thing with it. So yeah, that's where we're at so far. I think that's it for this video. Again, some of the little trinkets and add-ons, okay, with the fake carbon fiber front brake duct. This was from Ducati, and again, you know, when I'm randomly Googling things, I've learned to go to websites and find part numbers, you know, 123-456. And then every once in a while you type that into eBay, and again, someone had this dead old stock sitting in a bike shop somewhere, couldn't move it, had it on eBay for 1/3 of its retail price. Again, I got it brand new in the box, that sort of thing. A bit showy, but it does serve a function. It's obviously a clutch case cover, which hopefully I'll never have to use, but it looks kind of pretty and will serve a function. So anyway, it's, again, the bike is I'd say slowly or certainly steadily coming together, and hopefully the next video, hopefully the next video it'll be making some interesting noises. Again, that's going to be a loud exhaust, but it's a race bike, so why not? Anyway, check back soon, and yeah, if you like and subscribe when I do finally update this project, you'll get a notification. Oh, sorry, one last thing. These pretty red anodized velocity stacks here, you'll see there's a screen on top. So I got those from Japan, and they're not the cheap Chinese crap, you know, that's they've glued it into the plastic or something like that. This is aluminum, and it's been folded over and pressed. They've been used. I could smell fuel on them, so that's good. But this to me is a real peace of mind with debris going into the throats of the carburetor. So that's mainly why I decided to track one of those things down and go with those. So yeah, that's where we're at. So I can take off my timing reminder because the engine is currently in time to remove the belts, put them back on, and you know me, I'll fastidiously clean. This is entertaining YouTube content. Fastidiously clean while I'm doing it to make sure that it's in the right condition to put it all back together. Oh, one more last thing. Belt covers. Of course, they got to look nice, right? So I had some leftover vinyl satin paint, duplicolor product, and so I painted it with that. Ran it through the dishwasher. I won't tell my wife if you don't. Ran it through the dishwasher, hit it with some alcohol, and coated it with some satin 2-part clear coat as well. It's the same as what I did on the Panta project, and the TT project, and it turned out pretty nice. So those will go on when the belts are on and everything's hooked up properly. So yeah, like I said, updates soon, and we'll have it running before summer. Cross fingers.